Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. We're doing something a little bit different today. I was reading through an article and something caught my eye which blew my mind. So I'm going to take you through it today and see if it blows yours as well. So I was reading this article here on pocketgamer.biz and basically it's an interview with the Plarium CEO. Yeah, and I'll go into this interview in a little bit of detail as we get through this video, and you can kind of see if you think that the CEO is actually in touch with the community. Does he really understand his game? Yes or no? And we can kind of get into some thoughts on that. But the thing that caught my eye was this. So Raid Shadow Legends recently exceeded $1 billion in lifetime revenue, making it one of the most profitable mobile games of all time. And don't forget, like, Raid is 4 years old, pretty much. 3 to 4 years. Like, it is still relatively young as a game. It's hit $1 billion in revenue. Now, for those who don't quite understand this, you know, we've got, like, this concept of, you know, being a millionaire used to be the big thing to be, right? Oh, I'm a millionaire. It seemed like an insurmountable amount of money for somebody to make. £1 million, $1 million. Nowadays, being a billionaire is like it used to be as a millionaire. Like, to get to a billionaire is like the real thing to do. Whereas there's actually quite a lot of millionaires. And this is a really interesting kind of perspective on this. So, because people don't really understand the difference between a million and a billion. Like, how much more is it? This is a really, it's quite well known now, but people don't have a strong intuitive sense of how much bigger 1 billion is than 1 million. 1 million seconds is about 11 days. 1 billion seconds is about 31.5 years. Just kind of like let that process for a second, how much more insane a billion is versus a million. And that's where Plarium, that's where Raid have hit over the last few months. So I then started like digging a little bit deeper and looking at, you know, other games that are in this mix. And there's about 60 games that have hit 1 billion lifetime sales. And this is a sales number rather than a profit number. And honestly, Raid pump a lot of their profit or their sales back into marketing. That's why they're so successful in this genre. That's why they attract so many players. But yeah, you're talking like 60 games to have hit this milestone. That's a relatively small amount if you think about the amount of games that are on the landscape, especially when you start looking through some of these games that are in the mix. You know, some pretty big titles in there. So I then went on to look at, well, what does the top 10 look like? If Raid are in this kind of top 60, what's the top 10 look like? And what sort of money have they made? And you got Roblox in there, basically a kid's game, 4.4 billion. What's interesting to me on this top 10, by the way, is the different markets that they hit. Roblox basically hits the kids market, right? Fantasy Westward Journey, never heard of it before. This is going to be, I think it's in the kind of Chinese field. Yeah, there's a lot in this top 10 that basically have made their money in China or Japan, it feels like, or in that type of Asian market. 5.4 billion. Pokemon Go, this is a worldwide game, obviously well-known Pokemon as a brand, 6.2 billion. Fate Grand Order, don't know this game. Again, this is in the kind of Japanese market, 6.3 billion. Puzzles and Dragons. I played this game. I used to play this game. It's quite addictive. Yeah, even though it's only like a match 3 type of game, it's strangely addictive. You want to enhance your units. I can see how they made money. I spent money on this game, and I don't know why, but I did. Downloaded over 80 million times. Been around for 10 years. 6.3 billion. Candy Crush. Completely different genre and market again, and you're talking to 7.7 billion. Candy Crush is like the king of actual microtransactions. We're not talking about microtransactions which cost you £100 here. We're talking about a microtransaction of like £1. Yeah, 49p do this, 99p do this. You know, $1 for that, $1 for this. They've made 7.7 billion over the last 10 years. Clash of Clans, played this for a long time. 8.4 billion. Probably one of the first games I played where I saw the microtransaction turn into a mega transaction. Yeah, so 8.4 billion. PUBG Mobile, only been around for 4 years. 8.7 billion. And people would consider this a properly free-to-play game. You do not get any enhancements from spending money in this game. It's all visuals. 8.7 billion. Monster Strike, I'll honestly say never heard of this game. Again, it seems to be a mainly Japanese market or Asian market. 10 billion, came out in 2013. And then number one, Honor of Kings, 12.5 billion since 2015. Just contemplate that. Think about how much more a billion was than a million. We got 12.5 of those bad boys. Damn. And some of the stats here are nuts. So, Honor of Kings, yeah, massive game, blah, blah, blah. Takes the top spot as the highest grossing mobile game of all time. Follows in the footsteps of Riot Games' League of Legends, also owned by Tencent. So Tencent owned both those games. It's in the MOBA genre. And I want to talk about MOBA towards the end of the video. And that's something you want to check out, by the way. If you just don't skip a load of this, check the end of the video. But this is the crazy thing. So Honor of Kings regularly takes the lead. But overall, worldwide, this sentence, overall, worldwide consumer spending on a monthly basis. Most of its success stemmed from China. Was individually responsible for 96% of global player spending in 2018. 96%. Can you even believe the number? 2018, 96% of spending was through this game, which is crazy, by the way. Anyway, let's get back to the article then, and let's hear what's the CEO's got to say about his perception of the world. Yeah, they're asking him direct questions. His perception. I'm not going to go through it all. I will link it down below if you want to read it all in detail. But it says here, yeah, I'm the CEO, blah blah blah. Right, it's been out for 4 years. How do you reflect on its performance from launch to now? And what they say here is they knew it was going to be a success because of the soft launch, albeit they didn't realize how successful it was going to be. And he views Raid as like a masterclass at consistently adding new players for a steady rollout of live ops, which is basically either updates or ops in terms of marketing ops, yeah? And I've got to say, they do this so damn well. They spend a lot of money on it. As I said, about a third of their income goes into marketing, but they've got different streams of attracting players. Yeah, I came to this game because I was looking for an equivalent to an MMO without physically having to play an MMO. And I wanted it for whilst I was commuting to work. So I used to get on a train, commute to work to London, which was about an hour train journey. And then I'd play it in my breaks and stuff as well. And it got to the point where I also enjoyed it enough to play it at weekends and stuff. But for me, originally, I was looking for that kind of fix of a strategy type of game where I could use a combination of different gear or champions to overcome strategic bosses. Yeah, that's what I wanted. And it was kind of like my fix of something close to World of Warcraft without physically having to be in the game 10 hours a day, grinding out this, grinding out that, collecting this. I could actually just get the job done semi-idle. And I think they've done a good job then of adding new players through things like big marketing events, Mr. Beast, Ninja, using people like Jeff Goldblum in their adverts to add a bit of credibility, taking things in a different direction by having proper decent animated ads, like CGI ads. It's so far and above anyone else in this space that it's nuts. Yeah, so they do a good job in this, in fairness, and they spend a lot of money to do a good job. But they're constantly attracting new players, constantly. Because actually, and we'll get into that in a little bit in this article, the length of time for a player isn't not like the 3 to 4 year type of player. It's more like a 6-month player at max. They talk about the size of the team. They go on to talk about how important it's considered to be, or how important does he consider customer support and updates. And he says here, they basically need to be online with a AAA quality game. Yeah, so players spend considerable time with Raid, and we need to act quickly and efficiently if they've got a problem. Now, I'll be honest, I see a lot of DMs come my way, and maybe that's a small proportion of the reality. But I see a lot of people upset around the time to kind of fix problems. Normally, it's because it's an emotional thing that they've spent money and they're not feeling like they've got the value out of their money. And I get that. You know, if you spend 100 quid on a pack, you want the pack right away. You don't want to not get it and then be worried that that money's just been eaten for nothing. So I do get that people get a little bit emotional around that stuff. They also say here, we consider community building a vital portion of customer support. So I think basically what they're saying there is, like, a lot of the customer support is required around how do you actually play this damn game? It's a hard game to pick up. And they kind of use the community to help facilitate a lot of this. And I think they do. The community is also a vehicle for new ideas. And often responding to their needs helps us create the new kind of updates. Now, I've got to say, they've become way better at this in the last 18 months than they did in the first 18 months that I played the game. In the first 18 months, I feel like they were like tunnel vision. This is what we're going to do, and we're not listening. In the last 18 months, I feel like, if I'm putting out videos to say this should change, this should change, this should be updated, a fair chunk of it is being done. And I'm not always right, obviously, but I feel like a fair chunk of the stuff that actually would improve somebody's quality of life or improve a dungeon is actually starting to be done. There's still way more that needs to be done, because if you go back to what I said originally about why I started playing the game, it's because I wanted to be able to play this kind of like almost like a feel of an MMO without the time commitment. Well, over time, raids become bigger and bigger, and there's been more stuff to do, and it feels like there's more and more of a time commitment to the game. They have added some quality of life features around time. They need to do more. They still need to do more, because it's still, I think, is probably the biggest risk for their game, is how much time you need to spend in it. They say here, raid players are very smart, sophisticated, detail-orientated, and we listen and learn from them. I think often they drop updates or champions, and they don't even realize the power of that champion until they see what the community can do. So that's pretty fun to see as well. It says here, what steps do you take to make sure that Raid maintains a sizable audience and player base? And he basically talks about a lot of champion release. So they've realized that just dropping a few new champions a month, dropping the regular fusions, the fragments, it keeps players active, and it also keeps players excited. Like, people say to me, I don't want new champions. I want a new bit of content. And yet when new content drops, and they drop champions at the same time, I get more views on videos about champions than I do about the content. Fact. Yeah, so sometimes what people think they want versus what they actually want is two different things. And it looks like the CEO has pretty much nailed it here, in that bringing interesting champions, allowing people to build out fun teams, is actually a really big part of this game. It says here as well, so we've then made sure to invest considerable resources in creating a steady cadence of quality feature updates. So that's their general updates. I think they do an okay job of this. And again, I feel like they're doing better at this. One of the things he doesn't mention here to any kind of detail is how well they market. And I've spoken about it already, but they spend so much money. It was almost a meme at one point, the amount of people that would kind of like come and play Raid Shadow Legends as YouTubers and people advertising the game. Actually, people didn't want to play it because they thought the game would just be crap. I think they've toned it down a touch, but they still do these kind of big pushes from time to time. What would you consider Raid's greatest achievement? It says here, basically the quality and features and the polish. I think they're better than any other game in this space because of the polish and the quality of champion design and look, and boss design and look. So I think he's probably got it right. I think they don't talk about it, but their biggest weakness is really how useless PvP is in the game. Maybe you don't need it. You could probably get away without having PvP at all in a game like this if you went more like a World of Warcraft, more dungeons, more bosses, enhanced Doom Tower to have more bosses, more interesting stuff like that. I think that's actually enough, because the amount of people that enjoy PvP versus those that don't, I think is like a massive scale. But as for the PvP that's there, I think it's pretty weak. What lessons have you learned? And in hindsight, what would you do differently? I think what he basically pulls out here to say, we get a ton of ideas. We've always got loads of ideas coming to us either from the community or from the team. What's difficult and what they do better now than what they used to do is actually honing in on, focus on one idea and do it as well as you can. I think what they do poorly here, and it's a lesson they still need to learn, is when they drop something which is weak, they don't do a good job of enhancing it. It's already in the game. Something like the Bazaar, for example, been in the game forever, or not forever, but for a decent amount of time now, and it's just sat there in its current form when it could be absolutely amazing. In this form, it's weak. It's got potential to be way better, way more interesting. Same with 3v3 Arena in general. It's weak. It could be a lot better. They haven't decided to enhance it. Things like Hydra, Clan Boss, things like now the Twins, they drop new features and the rewards are not quite sexy enough to engage the player base. And therefore, over time, I bet their analytics just show this. Amount of players actively doing it are lowered. And then with stuff like Hydra, I mean, they're trying to now force us to do it in different ways. And actually, I think Hydra's got better since they did the updates. But because, again, there's no shards or stuff in the mix, people don't play it. Or don't play it. Or they play it as like, I'll do it very quickly. And then they don't kind of invest like they do in the normal Clan Boss, for example. Now, I did say I talked about this kind of interesting part at the end of the video. And this is one of the things that's really piqued my interest. So here, question 9. Finally, how has your experience with Raid informed where you are and what you're working on now? And he says here, we broke a glass ceiling at Player Room with Raid and got a better understanding of how we achieved it. Most importantly, how we can build on it further. Although I cannot mention what we are working on right now, it's in a widely popular genre and will be bigger in size and scope than Raid. I'm pretty excited by that comment, and obviously we don't know timelines or anything. We don't know anything. I'm pretty excited by that. What if they used the kind of Raid IP in terms of their factions, their champions, you know, the kind of interest around Teleria and some of the kind of backstory that they're now building, and they built their own MOBA game. I think it would fit the kind of IP really well. It would enhance what already exists with Raid, and it's in a very popular genre. They know that MOBA is probably the most popular genre for a mobile playing game, a mobile player base, but also they like to have their games also kind of translate onto PC as well with their own clients. It feels like it's a perfect fit to me. I don't know, guys. Listen, you know, comment below. What do you think it could be if it wasn't that, or if it is that? How would you feel about it? Also, how do you feel about Raid being Billionaires? There you go, guys. A bit of a different one from me, but I was interested by it, so I thought I'd share it with you. I've been Hell Hades. I'll see you later.